Every year, Joe takes a week during the summer to relax at his friend's cabin in the Maine woods. One night, after he's just arrived, he's sitting in the cabin when he hears a knock at the door. He opens the door and doesn't see anything until he looks down. On the wooden porch, he sees a small snail. Annoyed, he picks up the snail and throws it as far as he can. 3 years later, Joe is back in the cabin for another summer retreat. There's a knock on the door. He opens it and sees nothing. Then remembers. He looks down, and there's the same snail. The snail says, "What the hell was that all about?" Good morning. It's Wednesday, September the 28th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Star-Spangled Banner, we will have mark-kaye 1, 2, and 3, Tucker-Carlson 1 and 2, Liz Wheeler, Ron-DeSantis, Stuart Varney, and all that and more when I get back. Thank you. And now the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare for September 28th. Father, I receive the majesty of Lebanon because I am in your kingdom. Let me grow and be strong as the cedars of Lebanon. Let fruitfulness and abundance be upon my life. You created Lebanon for your glory, and it is a symbol of the majesty of your kingdom. Let the reality of Lebanon be released in my life. Let the river of God flow from your holy mountain and water my land, and let me be an oasis of your blessing to those who are weary. Amen. And that was the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare, Biblical Principles to Defeat the Devil for September 28th. Thank you. Why am I the only true conservative in the United States today? Because I'm the only person in the United States of America that knows that the government has no rights. Back in a minute. Thank you. What is the true conservative's strategy for defeating the left? True conservatives must take the Democrats' issues away from them. True conservatives must convince the country that they are the party of gun control, feminism, environmentalism, and racial diversity. To win, the true conservative must fight to own the left's issues. The left claims that there exists left-wing issues and right-wing issues. Wrong. The left claims women's rights, the environment, civil rights, racial and sexual, labor, and poverty as their issues. Wrong. If true conservatives are allowed the left to define political positions, they will never win. True conservatives must fight for all political constituencies if they hope to survive and thrive. To fight and win these battles, we must appeal to people's natural conservative tendencies. The true conservative is the true feminist, true environmentalist, true civil rights champion, and true friend to labor and the poor, because that's the way it is. We respect the independence of the individual, regardless of who they are, while the left demands fealty and obedience. Thank you. And now there's no free lunch. Quote, viewed as a means to the end of political freedom, economic arrangements are important because of their effect on the concentration or dispersion of power. The kind of economic organization that provides economic freedom directly, namely competitive capitalism, also promotes political freedom because it separates economic power from political power and in this way enables the one to offset the other. Unquote. Milton Friedman. This masterful quote is almost self-explanatory, but the message behind it is profoundly important. A vicious cycle exists where there is limited political freedom that facilitates limited economic freedom, let alone civic freedom. But a virtuous cycle exists where economic power is separated as much as possible from political power. Limiting the size of government, political power, is the only way to limit the capacity for using political power to enhance economic power. And that was, there's no free lunch. Thank you. And now a little bit of Mark-Kaye.
Nancy Pelosi made an appearance at something called the Global Citizen Festival in New York City, and the crowd was not happy to see her.
As Speaker of the House, I am here to thank you. Nancy Pelosi.
Man, that lady will go just about anywhere for free booze.
And that was Mark-Kaye. Thank you. And now, a little bit more Mark-Kaye.
Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, is the governor of a border state. California is a border state. You have as many immigrants fleeing to Los Angeles, California, as you do going up to Phoenix and Laredo, Texas, and, here in Florida and being flown all over. But he doesn't seem to care. In fact, he welcomes it. And he went on, again, I don't know where he was on some kind of panel, and he was being interviewed, and he said one of the most unbelievable statements, because the Democrats believe that if they're sitting in a chair on a stage being interviewed and they say it, that it must be true. That's all it takes. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for office, or I hold a political office. I'm sitting in a comfy chair on stage. Somebody asks me a question, and I'm answering it. And for that reason and that reason only, you must believe what I say. Listen to what Governor Gavin Newsom of California said about the border debate.
Many factors, and there's been two deep analysis that drives the number one factor. The vast majority, almost the entire amount, impacted because of the visa policies in the Trump administration.
Oh, the Trump administration. You know why we have this debate now? You know why Ron DeSantis is flying immigrants around? You know why there's so many immigrants at our southern border? Donald Trump. The go-to answer for any Democrat. It's not my problem. It's not Joe Biden's problem. Do you know why Joe Biden can't find his way off of the stage? That Donald Trump, he took all the signs when he...
And that was Mark-Kaye. Thank you. Mark-Kaye, number 3.
So AOC took to her Instagram, and she started a little Instagram live, and she was kicking back in her couch with her sweatshirt on, just spewing ridiculous comments and lies about immigration. Listen to what she said.
There are quite a few countries that are really struggling because young people, because under the burdens of capitalism and living under a society that's increasingly concentrating wealth among the rich, we're not having kids, or we're not having kids at the same rate. And we actually need immigrant populations to help balance things out.
Okay, couple things here. If you heard, she said young people are not having children at the rate they used to under the burdens of capitalism. It's the concentrated wealth among the risk that is keeping young people from having babies. It's not the lack of Christian upbringing or the destruction of the family unit or, the proliferation of abortion and abortive techniques to end pregnancy and therefore use abortion as birth control so that people can go out in the desert for Burning Man and party and have sex with whoever they want and not have suffer any consequences or grow the family. Maybe it's all of those things. But she goes, no, that's not it at all. It's the burdens of capitalism. The reason, if you get pregnant as a woman, let's say you're 22 years old, let's say you go out and you have a couple drinks, you meet a guy, you take him back to your place, or he goes back to your place, or hell, I don't know, you just stop in the bathroom on the way out, the transgender bathroom or the gender-neutral bathroom, because both of you are allowed in there, and you get busy, you have some fun, you leave, a couple weeks later, you're not feeling so hot, you realize you may be late, you go get one of those pregnancy tests, and oh, by golly, you're pregnant. Are you going to have the abortion because you don't know the guy, you don't know the father? Are you going to have the abortion because it's not something you can handle right now because you're trying to concentrate on your career? Or are you going to have the abortion because you think to yourself, I can't have a child now under the burdens of capitalism where more and more wealth is being concentrated in the rich? How many times I don't know, again, I've never been to an abortion clinic, don't know anything about it. I mean, I know some, I've read a lot, but I've never been to an actual clinic, never had an abortion, never been with somebody who did. I imagine there's some kind of psychiatric counseling, or they ask you why you don't want to keep the baby. And I'm just wondering if, there are girls that say, I was too young. I was too, I'm not ready. My parents will kill me. Later on in life, I don't like the guy, whatever. I'm going off to college and I have a track scholarship and I want to be a track star. I don't know that there's anyone that's ever walked into an abortion clinic and said, I need to have an abortion because the burdens of capitalism and the concentration of the wealth to the rich are just, they make it an environment that is not hospitable to me being a mother. I don't know if that ever happens. I'm going to be honest with you. If there's any doctors, and I know that there's patient doctor privilege, but if anyone's ever heard that as an excuse, because you hear the Democrats all the time. They always say these Republicans are against abortion even in cases of rape or incest. Never once has anyone said these Republicans are against abortion even in cases of rape, incest, and the burdens of capitalism where the wealth is concentrated in the hands of the few. I mean, I've never heard that debate, but maybe that's the new tact she's going to take.
We can't continue to fund Social Security, Medicare, all of this stuff without immigrants.
She wants to steal money from immigrants to pay for her Social Security and Medicare. She's looking around and saying, okay, the Americans in this country, Gen Z, the millennials, they're not having kids. At least they're not having kids at the rate that our parents did, the baby boomers did. They've stopped having kids for whatever reason, because they look at their families and go, no, thanks, not for me. Or because they don't go to church anymore, where the priest or the preacher says, go out there, be fruitful and multiply. Every child is a gift to God. Go out there and make as many babies as you possibly can so that we continue this great human race. They don't do that anymore. Instead, they stay home and they play Fortnite and they become totally unattractive to the other sex anyway. So there's no more proliferation of the species. Well, she's saying in that case, Social Security is going to dry up. Medicare is going to dry up. We need some people to come in here and work and pay money into the system. Let's go grab some immigrants so that when I retire, I'll be well taken care of. Let's go get some immigrants to save our Social Security and Medicare.
We can't continue to fund Social Security, Medicare, all of this stuff without immigrants.
She wants immigrants to come in here and work for her to take care of her when she is old, when she's retired. She knows the Social Security system's broken. Hell, her party broke it. She knows that they've been dipping into this fund for years. She knows that the Republicans, the reason why they want you to be able to invest in your own retirement is because trusting the government with your retirement is like trusting me with your hair. You know, like, Mark, will you come cut my hair? Sure, I'd love to. You know, I'm not an expert in that kind of thing. You are going to do a much better job taking care of your own money. But AOC and the Democrats, they don't want that. They want a socialized system. They want as much money in the Medicaid and the Medicare, and they want as much money in Social Security. And the fact that it's disappearing faster than they can print it or tax you for it. They need more people to come in here and work and pay into the system. So let's get these immigrants in here to take care of her when she's old. What she wants is she wants a new form of slavery. She wants to live off of the spoils of the new working class. And the new working class are people that she's shuttling in illegally from across the border. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. It definitely seems like an immoral scam to me. But then again, what else would you expect? What else would you expect from someone like AOC and the Democrat Party?
Thank you. So that was mark-kaye, and they're hitting on the point I've been making for a long time, that the reason for illegal immigration has less to do with greedy corporations, because, I mean, figure it out. Even if you get 2 million immigrants in here, and we've got 1 million corporations, that amounts to what? 2 immigrants per corporation? How much money are they going to save ripping off two immigrants apiece? Not enough to make it worth their while. So then you got to start. Usually the best thing to do is when something's going wrong and you want to find out what the problem is, start with the government. Okay? Well, if there's no way you can blame the government, then you start looking at business. And in this particular case, you say, well, why would the government? Because again, remember, it's not, I don't hear Exxon and Mobil going out and saying, hey, let's open the borders, right? It's always the Democrats. It's always a political party. It's always a political issue. It's coming from Congress. It's coming from the executive branch. Those are the places where you get people that want to have illegal immigrants, the open borders, and we've got to be compassionate and all that garbage. So, and why? What would government benefit? And mark-kaye and AOC answer the question. Social Security. We've been told many, many times that Social Security is on the verge of bankruptcy. So we either got to hurry up and have a lot of children, but even if we do, they're not going to be old enough to start working until the Social Security system is on its either bankrupt or just about to go bankrupt. So that's too late anyways. So you bring in all these illegal immigrants, and which you don't have to do. You can do it if we need them, if we really need them, green cards. The other thing is do away with Social Security. Grandfather it. Whoever's getting Social Security now continues to get Social Security, but nobody gets no new applications. Or you can do it whatever way you want to. If you're over the age of 40, you get it. And anybody under the age of 40, no. Kill the program. It was a shitty idea to begin with. All it was a giant Ponzi scheme. So go ahead and do that. Because again, it's always going to be this is always going to be a problem demographically. When you have a large amount of people retiring and not enough people to pay into the system to cover that. So, but anyways, that was my point is that Social Security and the desire to support Social Security and Medicare is what's driving the illegal immigration push and not businesses. Back in a minute. Thank you. And we can't get enough of mark-kaye. We really can't. So,
Stacey Abrams from just north of our border in Georgia, she's running for governor. She's losing. Oh, and see, she's losing to Brian Kemp for governor. She's used to it. That's typically what happens when she runs for governor. And even though she's been on every television show possible, The View, she's always on MSNBC, she's always talking to anyone who will listen. She was on an episode of Star Trek, playing like the president of the galaxy or something. I remember, I didn't watch it, I just saw the clip of it. But she said something yesterday. I don't know where exactly she was, but she was on a panel. Looked like some kind of high school gym or maybe a college atmosphere. And there were panelists and there were people videotaping her, and they recorded this statement she made about abortion. And specifically, you could tell she was making pro-abortion comments. She was trying to, she was trying to explain to people how she can justify abortion. And not only that, but she came up with a very bizarre, really conspiracy theory, if you ask me, as to why abortion happens, and more importantly, about the fetal heartbeat. Listen, it's kind of tough to hear, but I will play it for you a couple times, and I'll let you know exactly what she said. Listen to this.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body and waste over.
Yeah, all right, that's a horrible audio recording, but what she said was, there's no such thing as a fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks, meaning at 6 weeks, there's no heartbeat in the fetus. Now, that is 100% scientifically not true. There are scientific facts, there are scientific studies, there are doctors who have written that between 4 to 6 weeks, the heart starts beating. There is a fetal heartbeat between 4 and 6 weeks. However, that doesn't matter. I mean, it's just a fact. The Democrats are never bothered by facts. If they don't like the facts, they just fact-check them, ignore them, or make up their own. And so she's out there lying, saying there's no such thing as a fetal heartbeat. And then she goes, but someone's going to say, she's preemptively debating with somebody, and she knows someone's going to say, but Mrs. Abrams, I heard my baby's heartbeat when I went to the doctor. I was 6 weeks pregnant, and they had the sonogram thing on the chest, and I heard on the belly. Sorry, the chest would be the wrong spot for
I
that.
was wondering why you were rubbing your chest. I was like, it's not your heartbeat.
Why am I rubbing my chest? I mean, that's my heartbeat. That's what I'm thinking of my baby's heartbeat. Yeah. No, the baby is in the belly kind of area. So they put the sonogram there. They put the jelly, and you can listen and hear it, and it sounds kind of like it's like, it doesn't sound like boom boom boom. It's not a full. It goes. That's kind of what it sounds like.
And it's way faster.
And it's okay. Sorry.
No, I mean way faster than ours. You were doing it well.
Yeah, and then it's really the blood rushing in and out of the baby, and that's kind of what you hear. So she's saying that's not the fetal heartbeat. Let me play what she said one more time so you can hear it.
It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body and waste over.
Okay, she's saying it's a manufactured sound that has been designed so that men can take control of a woman's body and her right to choose. Now, I've been accused of being a conspiracy theorist for some of the things I've said and thought on this show. I know a lot of people listening have been accused of being conspiracy theorists. Hell, the President of the United States currently stood up in front of Independence Hall and called me and pretty much everybody I work with, everybody I know, everyone I interact with on a daily basis, extremists and conspiracy theorists because we voted for somebody other than him in the last election. But I got to tell you, the fact that Stacey Abrams, who is supposedly a legitimate Democrat candidate for governor, went on stage and said, there's no fetal heartbeat before 6 weeks old. This is a manufactured sound that men have come up with this idea way back when. If they manufacture a fake phony heartbeat at 6 weeks old, then maybe they could take control of women's bodies and convince those women not to have abortions. Because if those women don't have abortions, then they are in control. And if those women do have abortions, then that means that they're in charge of their own bodies, and men just can't have that. Again, I've heard of some conspiracy theories in my life, but none as far-fetched and out of reach as this. I mean, I've heard people say the earth is flat. I've heard people say the moon landing was falsified. I've heard all of those. Never before have I heard something crazier than there's no fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks. It's just a manufactured sound. That little sonogram, it's not even, you know what that is? They just took a video, they made that up. It's CGI, and it just runs that. that it's pre-programmed, and all of the doctors are in this vast conspiracy. Even the females, even the female gynecologists, they've been brainwashed by the system or paid off. Somehow they're getting some kind of kickbacks from the medical community, so that if you're a gynecologist, whether you're a male or whether you're a female, you are using that wretched sonogram machine, that mechanical fraudster to just create a phony heartbeat so that you can convince women not to have abortions, so that you can take control of their bodies.
And again, that was Mark-Kaye. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of Tucker-Carlson.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker-Carlson tonight. Happy Monday. Not a lot of Americans pay attention to European politics unless they're very bored or work at some think tank. And that's understandable, but it's a shame, really, because if you look closely at what's happening in Europe, you can learn a lot about what's happening here. Despite the castles and the funny accents and the smelly cheese, Europe is not actually that different from the United States, at least in this way. European leaders run their countries pretty much the same way our leaders run our country. They yammer on endlessly about democracy, but then at the same time they do their best to avoid democracy's most basic requirements, like free speech and representative government. A few years ago, the Prime Minister of Italy at the time, Paolo Gentiloni, bragged to the World Economic Forum about his plans to, quote, bring more social justice to the country, by which he meant importing many more thousands of poorly educated economic migrants from the Third World into Italy. We are very open on migration, he said. We are saving lives at sea. Ooh, saving lives, huh? Congratulations, you're such a good person. But the question is, and it's a relevant question in a democracy, what do the people who live in Italy, that would be your constituents, think of that idea? Well, as the Prime Minister explained, he didn't care. Quote, a demand for more democracy not only is wrong, it's even dangerous. You following this? You run a country in the name of the people. You're not a king, you're a democratically elected leader. You run it in the name of the people who live there, but at the same time it's, quote, dangerous to allow the opinions of those people to influence your decisions. Does that sound familiar? Oh, it does, because it's exactly the kind of democracy that we live in, which is to say, a fake one. In fact, there is no majority in any country on planet Earth that thinks open borders are a good idea, or that considers global warming the single biggest problem, or that thinks it's wise to quarantine the entire population because of a flu virus. No large group of people anywhere wants these things. But in the West, everybody gets them anyway because politicians don't care what you think. Your opinion is dangerous. Shut up, racist! So it goes without saying this can't last. A system like this cannot endure forever because it's inherently unstable. You can't tell people they're in charge of their own government. It's a democracy, we promise, and then ignore over decades their most strongly held opinions on things that matter. That doesn't work long term. They will rebel, guaranteed. And the best you can hope for is that they will do it peacefully. In Italy, they seem to be doing just that. This summer, a conservative populist called Giorgia Meloni started showing up with strong support in the polls. Meloni was no radical. Her views would have seemed perfectly ordinary just a decade ago. But because she resolutely refused to bow to the twin gods of climate and mass migration, people panicked. The president of the European Commission, in fact, on camera, commanded Italians not to vote for her. Watch.
So we'll see if things go in a difficult direction. I've spoken about Hungary and Poland. We have tools if things go in the right direction. And people, as a body that is always, where always governments have to be accountable to, play an important role.
Oh, if things go in the wrong directions, in other words, if voters disobey, quote, we have tools. Oh, you do you? Well, that sounds like a threat because, of course, it is a threat. But it turns out Italians are so desperate, they no longer care. They're not afraid. And they're not afraid because neoliberalism, which that lady is just espousing, has destroyed their country. Energy prices in some places in Italy are now up more than 400% over last year. Why? Well, a pointless war in Ukraine and self-destructive climate policy. It's not an accident, and everyone knows it. Meanwhile, parts of Italy are becoming flat out dangerous. That hasn't happened before outside of Sicily, but it's happening now. Why? Everyone knows why. And government statistics show why. It's migrants who are driving much of the crime, a huge amount of the crime. So these aren't mysteries, but you're not allowed to acknowledge them in public. Period. In some places it's illegal. But Meloni is one of the very few politicians who doesn't care and has been willing to say the obvious, the truth, out loud. And as a result of that, because she's been willing to say what everybody actually knows, last night her party, called Brothers of Italy, won an overwhelming victory in Italy. They took both majorities in the Houses of Parliament. So by Italian standards, in fact by American standards, this is a revolution. But unlike most revolutions, the person at the front of it can actually explain what she's about. She can articulate it in a way people understand. She's smart. This is part of the speech she gave earlier this year that led to last night's results. Watch.
Everything we stand for is under attack. Our individual freedom is under attack. Our rights are under attack. The sovereignty of our nation is under attack. The prosperity and well-being of our families is under attack. The education of our children is under attack. In front of this, people understand that in this age, the only way of being rebels is to preserve what we are. The only way of being rebels is to be conservatives. They will try to take everything away from us, but they can't take away who we are. And you know what? Cherishing who we are, knowing what we stand for, is all we need to face this challenge.
My blood pressure kept climbing, even while my readings were around 153 over 110. It was spiking.
She's not kidding. She's as serious as the moment we are currently living through. Our rights are under attack, she said. The sovereignty of our nation is under attack. And critically, quote, the prosperity and well-being of our families is under attack. And that's true. That's why it's resonant, because it's real, and not just in Italy. It's true here. American families are facing the very same onslaught from the very same poisonous ideologies. The difference is that in this country, it's rarely acknowledged, except on the fringes. Meloni is not on the fringes. She's the new prime minister of Italy. She will be, and she's saying it out loud. Contrast that to what's happening in the United States. House Republicans just spelled out what they're running on. It's a document called the Commitment to America. It's fine. Probably not much in it you disagree with it. Have you heard of it? No, you probably haven't. You probably haven't read it. Nobody really cares. Why? Because there's nothing real in it. There's not a single word in that document about the attacks on the American family that you see every day. That's at the center of most people's concerns. How are my kids? Will they have a life that resembles mine? That was called the American dream. Does it still exist? Will they be able to afford to live the way they grew up? Will they have the opportunities that we had? No. People are upset about that. Why wouldn't they be? But nobody says it. And that's odd, because we know, and now it's been proven, that when politicians are brave enough to tell the truth about what's actually happening, they tend to be rewarded for it. Once again, here's the incoming Prime Minister of Italy. And as you watch this, ask yourself if you would vote for a candidate like this if you had the chance in our country.
A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi. Perché la famiglia è un nemico? Perché la famiglia fa così paura? C'è una risposta unica per tutte queste domande. Perché ci definisce, perché è la nostra identità. Perché tutto quello che ci definisce in questo tempo è un nemico. Per chi vorrebbe che non avessimo più un'identità e che fossimo solamente schiavi, consumatori perfetti. Chesterton, ormai più di un secolo fa, vediamo se ve lo trovo, fuochi verranno attizzati per dimostrare che 2 più 2 fa 4. Spade verranno sguainate per dimostrare che le foglie sono verdi in estate. Quel tempo è arrivato, signori. Siamo pronti. Grazie.
So that's the person who's being described all over American television, including on channels that should know better, as, quote, far right. That's far right, really? Because she acknowledges that American families are under attack? Of course they are. You think it's accidental? No. And she explains why. And it's simple. If you want to establish totalitarian control over a country, of course you have to destroy the family first. Because nobody with deep family loyalty, the one thing every person should have, no one who has that will ever pledge absolute obedience to a politician. Why would you? So if you want absolute obedience, you have to sever family ties. And that's why state schools brainwash your children with values that you despise and then instruct your children to turn you in as a thought criminal if you object. That's happening. It's not your imagination, and it's happening for a reason. Wokeness is not just a political ideology. It's not just something annoying that emerged on college campuses that we can ignore. It's a state religion that supplants actual religion, which is also being destroyed. There's a reason the strip bars and the liquor stores and the weed dispensaries stayed open under COVID, but the churches didn't. If you can't draw the connection between those dots, you're missing it. But Bologna didn't miss it. She understands it perfectly. Watch.
Only a few months ago, European Union bureaucrats wrote a document hundreds of pages long, telling us that in order to be inclusive, we had to exclude all references to Christmas. Jesus, Mary, and all Christian names were to be removed from all official communication. Will we surrender in front of this? No, we will not. We will fight it. We will fight it standing tall.
So they hate your family, they hate your religion, and you don't actually have to put up with it because it's a democracy and you're supposed to be in charge, you being the population. That's a radical message. God, family, country. That's not radical. It's hard to imagine a more wholesome message, a more pro-human platform. Fascists don't believe in God because God is a rival to their power. Of course. This is a person publicly professing faith in God. That's so scary, but it is so scary. It's so scary to the people running and benefiting from our current system. And why is that? She's not the first person to say this. People have said it before, but she's just been rewarded for saying it. That's the point. The population likes it. This is what they actually want. They're not that worried about global warming. They don't want open borders. They think the woke stuff is absurd. They want to say what they think. And now it's obvious because she just won. And so even in this country, the people running and benefiting from a deeply corrupt and doomed system are hysterical. Watch the reaction to that.
I want to start today by talking about a politician on the right who we should all be worried about, who's on the rise today. A politician who has brushed off accusations of fascism.
What separates us from, let's say, Italy, who elected a fascist?
She is from fascist roots. A far-right political party whose roots go back to post-World War II neo-fascist.
A party that has its roots in Italian fascism.
Its roots in Italian fascism.
Define that for us, if you would, Joe Scarborough. Oh, sorry. You're an idiot. You can't. But the point is, fascist means unacceptable. Whatever this chick is saying, you're not allowed to agree with. They're very worried that many Italians do agree with it. So she has to be completely unacceptable. Don't read further. She's a fascist. And in case you missed the theme, a recent New York Times piece on Maloney mentioned fascism or fascist 29 times. Not a subtle newspaper. Apparently she's on the verge of invading Poland. We should be worried. Watch this.
They said it could never happen again. 100 years ago, Mussolini marching on Rome, plunging the country into 2 decades of dictatorship, an alliance with Hitler, and a Second World War. Today, the fascist party is gone, but many say these are their political heirs, the Brothers of Italy. Once on the fringes, they've ballooned into the biggest party in the country. Now their leader, Giorgia Meloni, is poised to head the most hard-right government since Il Duce. The 45-year-old firebrand insists she's no fascist, just a proud conservative and nationalist, comfortable, nevertheless, with some of the hallmarks of Italian fascism, like this motto: Difenderemo Dio, patria e famiglia! God, fatherland, and family.
God, family, country. Well, that's pretty scary. Not a word about climate or equity. But again, it's their hysteria and their total unwillingness to ask obvious questions that lets you in on the secret, which is they're panicked. because they know the current system is doomed. And in fact, what happened last night in Italy is the best case scenario for them, because it was a peaceful transfer of power. That's a good thing. That's what you want. In a democracy, people should be allowed to have some influence on the priorities of the government that claims to represent them. And when they speak in an election, the people who've been repudiated have a moral obligation to pause just for 1 second and ask, why didn't they like what I was offering them? They have a right to an opinion. In fact, their opinion is at the center of our system, this democracy. But they never ask themselves that. They never take any blame whatsoever. They didn't in 2016 when Trump got elected. They immediately blamed Putin or Macedonian bot farms. They never blamed themselves. And so they never learned a single thing from what happened. That's exactly what's happening, not simply in American television, but also in Italy and also in the European Union. The bureaucrats who drove Italians to seek a change peacefully at the ballot box are completely unwilling to learn from that vote. They'll just keep ramming their unpopular garbage down the throats of a deeply ungrateful nation until there's an actual rebellion. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
And that was Tucker-Carlson. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Tucker-Carlson again.
First, there's other news we wanted to get to, and that includes an update on the Biden administration's armed crackdown on its critics. Earlier this month, a longtime FBI agent and SWAT team veteran called Steve Friend came forward to blow the whistle on what he has seen happen to the FBI under Joe Biden. And what he said was shocking. According to Agent Friend, Biden's FBI routinely uses heavily armed SWAT teams to raid the homes of American citizens who dare to criticize the administration. Now, to be clear, these are people who pose no danger to anyone. These are people who haven't even been accused, much less convicted, of a violent crime. So the point is not to bring justice. The point is to terrify and intimidate Joe Biden's political opponents. Hard to believe that's happening, but it is. Last year, to name just one example, the FBI's counterterrorism division raided the home of a 69-year-old Red Cross volunteer called Joseph Bolanos. An anonymous snitch had claimed that Bolanos was at the Capitol on January 6th. Not that he did anything violent, but that he was there. It turns out that wasn't even true. It was a lie. But the feds moved forward and destroyed Bolanos' life anyway. They showed up with guns, they stole his electronic devices, and they refused to return them. The whole experience was so traumatic that Joseph Bolanos suffered 2 strokes. Well, on September 19th, the FBI suspended Agent Steve Friend for daring to reveal what was happening, these abuses. Now, it's illegal under federal law to punish whistleblowers, but the FBI did it anyway. And then, 4 days later, with Friend out of the way, on the morning of September 23rd, a team of nearly 30 FBI agents, bristling with automatic weapons, raided the home of yet another harmless man with no criminal record. That man's name was Mark Houck. Houck is 47. He's a leader in his local Catholic community. FBI agents pointed rifles at Houck and his wife in front of their 7 children. Once again, to be clear, Houck is not a terrorist. He's never been accused of terrorism. He is instead a pro-lifer. Houck founded an organization called the King's Men. It's a pro-life group that encourages men to be leaders in their communities. Now, to give you a sense of who Houck is, we want to play this for you. Here he is describing the experience he had earlier this year praying outside an abortion clinic with his son.
A woman came out who had an abortion, and we offered her some post-abortion healing. And, we just said, we'll pray for you. And as we were praying, the Sorrowful Mysteries, I brought my son over. I said, come on, let's kneel down. We're going to do this, and we're going to leave. She got into it. She started attacking us personally while we were praying the Sorrowful Mysteries. I said, son, this is what the Lord's talking about when he said they hated me, they're going to hate you. They persecuted me, they're going to persecute. I whispered this to him as she was spewing all this vulgarity onto him and me. And, I just told him, this is what it's going to take. This is what we have to do. This is part of the journey.
So that's Mark Houck. Now, he's a religious man. Not everyone is a religious person. Not everyone agrees with Mark Houck. But there's no doubt that Mark Houck is a peaceful, is a nonviolent person. In October of last year, Houck was standing outside another abortion clinic in Pennsylvania. He was joined again by his 12-year-old son. That's when a man approached and began harassing the boy. So to defend his son, Houck pushed the extremist back. That was it. Local police looked into it. The district attorney's office looked into it. Nobody pressed charges against Mark Houck because it's not assault to protect your son from an extremist who's attacking him. But the Biden Justice Department decided to revise this view, and they charged Mark Houck with a federal crime, a felony, obstructing abortion access. There was no evidence that he had obstructed abortion access, but that's what they charged him with. Now, Houck learned about 3 months ago that the DOJ planned to charge him, and he offered to turn himself in voluntarily. That's what a civilized country allows. But that wasn't good enough for Merrick Garland's DOJ. They wanted to punish him and terrify his family to send the right message to anyone who would dare get in the way of the Biden agenda. So the DOJ sent a team of federal agents with rifles to Houck's home. He now faces 11 years in prison for protecting his son. Now, again, it's hard to believe that any of that actually happened, but it actually did. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life.
And that was Tucker Carlson missing the point. All the talk about abortion really is about, the talk is really about, or should be about, promiscuity. That's what abortion is for, so we can have a promiscuous society and we don't have to deal with the consequences of that promiscuity. The other part was the DOJ that's out of control, and I think that he got that exactly right, that it's really scary that the Department of Justice is going to be weaponizing the FBI like that. I commend the young man that came forward as a whistleblower, and as Sean Hannity said the other day, correctly, he said, hey, if you're an FBI agent, you're a frontline law enforcement officer of any sort, you don't have to obey unlawful orders. So that's one of the things that the law enforcement types need to and what you can also do when they pick you for a specific job. Hey, come here. We're going to have get this group together, and all of us we're going to go raid this guy or arrest so and so or whatever. And you're not comfortable with it. You can say no. You know what? I really don't want to go on this mission. I don't think I'm right for it. Whatever. So keep that in mind as well. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Ron DeSantis giving an update
in
on
South
Hurricane
Florida
Ian.
Until 5 a.m. We have 2 radar-indicated tornadoes in Kings Point in Palm Beach, as well as possible tornadoes in Hollywood in Broward County. The most recent update by the National Hurricane Center for the track of Ian places landfall at the juncture of Charlotte and Lee counties. And so if you think about where we were 48 hours ago with a much different track, 24 hours ago looking a lot like Tampa Bay, and then each model and then now the performance of the storm is causing the Hurricane Center to move it southeastward in terms of where it's on the west coast of Florida. And so people in southwest Florida, this is going to likely make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. There will be catastrophic flooding and life-threatening storm surge on the Gulf Coast region. And, of course, the highest risk will be in that southwest Florida region from Naples up to Sarasota. There's also potential for flash flooding and river flooding with 10 to 20 inches across central and northeast Florida. If you are in an evacuation zone, particularly in those southwest Florida counties, your time to evacuate is coming to an end. You need to evacuate now. You're going to start feeling major impacts of this storm relatively soon. We anticipate landfall sometime tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. But of course, even if it arrives on land tomorrow evening, you're going to feel those effects far before that. So if you still haven't made the decision, now's the time to do it, and now's the time to act. And again, you don't have to traverse all across the state of Florida. You need to get to higher ground. You need to get to structures that are safe. There are shelters open in all of these counties, and that would be preferable than remaining in one of those very vulnerable areas with really potentially catastrophic storm surge. Now, as the storm approaches and the winds start to pick up, you may see bridge closures as early as tomorrow. Once winds increase to around 40 to 45 miles per hour of sustained winds, both Florida Department of Transportation and the Florida Highway Patrol, in coordination with local law enforcement, will be evaluating the conditions to determine if and when to close bridges to ensure the safety of the motorists. Again, bridges may be closed as early as tomorrow, so as you make plans to evacuate, please keep that in mind. Additionally, as traffic has returned to a normal flow on I-4 eastbound, FDOT has discontinued for the time being the emergency shoulder use. If you plan on traveling on I-4, normal traffic patterns are in effect. Of course, if that traffic flow starts to slow down like it did earlier today, that's something that they will reinstitute. As evacuations continue, fuel stations may temporarily run out of fuel. You can use Gas Buddy to find stations in your area that have fuel. We have suspended tolls on the roads in Central Florida as well as the roads in Tampa Bay. We're going to continue to keep with that. We've mentioned today that Visit Florida has partnered with Expedia to provide hotel room options for people that are leaving evacuation zones. You can go to expedia.com/Florida to do that. In terms of vacancies, the most significant numbers of vacancies are in northern Florida from Tallahassee to Pensacola, as well as in southeast Florida in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. There are some vacancies in other parts of Florida, but those have by far the most vacancies at the current time. There's also a number of Airbnbs available, and similar to the hotels, the most availability is in both southeast Florida as well as the Big Bend and Panhandle region of the state of Florida. We think it's very important that you don't leave your pets behind. Bring your pets with you. They need you during this time. We have asked the hotels to relax their pet policies and to advertise their relaxed pet policies on their website and on Expedia. The good news is many of them have done that. Many of them are allowing pets when they otherwise may not do that, and we thank them for that because we understand how important it is when people are evacuating for their own safety. It's not just them, family members as well as their pets. We have over 176 shelters open statewide, including more than 50 special needs shelters, and more will likely be added as this storm progresses to other parts of the state. If you want to look at shelters, go to floridadisaster.org/shelters, floridadisaster.org/shelters. We now have 58 school districts that have announced school closures due to this storm. Go to fldoe.org/storminfo to get the most up-to-date information on school closures, fldoe.org/storminfo. There's now over 30,000 personnel stationed and standing by to help with power restoration, and that's across all of our utilities, our electric co-ops. Right now in the state of Florida, there's about 8,000 customers that are out of power. That's mostly in southeast Florida due to some of the things that we have seen. But of course, that number will be into the millions relatively shortly. You're going to see widespread power outages as a result of Hurricane Ian making landfall and then working its way through the state of Florida. But we're working with all of those companies to make sure that they have the ability to get in as soon as possible and to help restore power once the storm passes. And that's both FDOT as well as Florida Highway Patrol with that. FloridaDisaster.org/get-a-plan if you have any questions about what is going to be happening within the next 24 hours. And what's going to happen is this is a relatively slow-moving storm now. When it actually reaches landfall, it's likely to go to a trickle. That's going to dump an enormous amount of rain on the state of Florida. It is going to work its way from southwest Florida up to the central part of our state. It's going to have major impacts in places like Osceola County, Orange County, and it's now projected to exit the state of Florida after passing through Volusia County, and it will go into the Atlantic Ocean and likely probably gain strength and run into some other state. But once it gets out of Florida, it's going to be kicking up a lot of water, and that's going to impact northeast Florida. It's going to impact the St. Johns River. It's going to impact Duval County. So this is going to have widespread impact. So you see major hurricane category 4, that initial impact, that's going to be severe. The storm surge is going to be severe. Obviously, the water and the flooding for a slow-moving storm, very severe impacts in southwest Florida. But those impacts are going to continue going out all through the state. So this is not going to end up leaving the state of Florida until sometime on Friday.
And that was Governor Ron DeSantis giving a briefing about hurricane, I believe it's called Ian. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of Liz and on OANN. Let's see if we can find her. Here she is.
He's us. This is next. The FBI, it's coming for us now, not next, now. This is more dangerous. What happened to Mark Hauk and his family is more dangerous than Mar-a-Lago. He now faces 11 years in prison. His father, his wife, and his children rely on him to provide for them. What's going to happen to this guy? Well, I'm sure he'll get a plea deal that involves him being prohibited from praying outside of Planned Parenthood clinics, abortion clinics. What he's doing, fighting back in the culture war, is so effective that it frightens the left. And so they will use the power of the federal government to force him to stop. When the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, or when they targeted Trump with the Russia collusion allegations, and we all said, oh, they're targeting Trump first, but if our elected officials don't hold the FBI accountable, then we're next. This is the next.
And that was Liz Liz Wheeler from OANN. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now I'm going to play something from Varney and Company and then make a comment.
Right now, good stuff. Now, General Motors, they told their employees, hey, you've got to return to work 3 days a week. How did that go over?
Not well at all. I just don't understand this. It's 3 days a week. This is a hybrid schedule, and the employees don't even want to do that. So GM sent that announcement on Friday. So much backlash over the weekend that yesterday they clarified their message in an email to employees saying the 3-day-a-week return to office policy will be left to the individual teams, meaning don't freak out, and we'll get you more information in the next few months. Look, companies continue to delay the return to work. People have established patterns at home. No one's going to want to go back.
Okay, so anyways, what they're missing here is this has nothing to do with going back to work or where you work or anything like that. It has to do with employee power. And a trend in the United States that is bad, a bad trend, and that is more and more power to the employees and less power to consumers or to customers. Customers don't matter anymore. And if you doubt me, go out and try and get some customer service somewhere, see where it gets you, particularly if you're going to call somebody on the phone, if you're going to call for customer service for your computer, if you have a problem with your credit card or your bank account, try calling customer service and see where that gets you. The customer used to be king. That was the reason that America was great economically, because we put the customer first and the employees just basically, the companies and the employees had to do what the customers wanted. Okay, now we're moving to a European model. This is where we're becoming like Europe, is that we are giving employees power that they shouldn't have. Because, again, with the reason that the employees are being called back to work is for business reasons. General Motors needs people to be there because they have business that needs to be done. But the employees, typically myopic, say, we don't care, we want what we want when we want it, and if you don't give it to us, we're going to throw a temper tantrum. What GM should do is just simply set a deadline. You're going to show up for work not 3 days a week, 5 days a week. If you don't like that, you're going to be fired. Call their bluff, because this is what the left does all the time. It bluffs. And you call their bluff and see how fast these people come back to work. Then what they need to do is they need to send out a memo and tell the employees, you no longer run this company. We in management run this company. And that's the way it's going to be. So when we tell you to do something, you're going to do it. We don't care if you like it. We don't want your opinion. We're not interested. So do the job or get lost. And put and remind them that we're here because of the customers. The customers have certain expectations, certain demands, and you're going to go ahead and help us meet those demands, or you can get lost. Those are your two choices. But the point is that all across America, every business has to go back to putting customers first. Now, that reminds me that this is a business opportunity. If all of your competitors are busy, all of your customers, your competitors are busy satisfying their employees ahead of their customers, you have an opportunity to step in and change that and satisfy your customers ahead of your employees. And so doing, you're going to increase market share. Anyway, and then as far as GM is concerned, sell GM. Keep selling GM until they get the message and understand that customers come first, not employees. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. Until next time, remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.